Why did that teacher get fired from your school? Story 1. She had fallen off the wagon and was drinking a lot to the point where it was affecting her memory. We kept doing the same lecture on density in 6th grade science for a month, until one of my classmates decided to ask another teacher about it. From there she went to rehab. If anyone wants more context, she was our homeroom and science teacher. She was very nice, and married to our assistant principal, so she had a little bit more leeway. While she was able to remain sober for a while, she eventually passed away due to the effects of her addiction a few years after this. She never seemed like a bad teacher, but she was always stressed to the absolute maximum, always felt like she was working from behind, and generally struggling to keep up. You know, the traditional tail end of the functioning addict lifestyle. Affecting rather than affecting. That may have been one of the lessons I missed. Story 2. Our beloved teacher, Mr. Mon, had worked there for 29 years without incident and was one of the best teachers there. His classroom was always a laugh riot. He was the best roaster and encourages us to roast him properly. He never failed to get us motivated, and a lot of us owe our career inspiration from him. He was fired because he had jokingly smacked a student on the back of his head for making a stupid comment. It was like something out of a sitcom, and all of us expected it and loved it. Yet one student, who was new at the school, was culture shocked by this. He thought it was strange but hilarious. He told his mom offhandedly, and his mom became the Karen. Never mind that the student was the teacher's godson, no physical contact was allowed, says the Karen. He was suspended with pay for 3 months pending investigation, then was let go. Because the Karen twisted the story and it blew up around the school. A year later, teacher won both the lawsuit against the school and libel case against the Karen, with her son being one of the key witnesses. We still keep in contact and roast him for getting rich over smacking kids around. Story 3. Geeky A/V teacher that everyone loved. Knew he was a geek and owned it. Caught in a predator sting trying to solicit underage girls. The kicker was a spring school levy was coming up. Local police conspired with the school district to hide the charges for 3 weeks until the levy was passed. Someone substituted his class for 3 weeks. Yet everyone was both devastated and pissed. The district ended the school year early. Story 4. The principal of my elementary school got fired the first year he was hired. Or took leave before he was arrested. I'm not actually sure which came first. So a couple kids in my 4th grade class thought they'd prank the science teacher by pouring iodine and bleach into his coffee when he wasn't looking. The teacher tasted it as soon as the drink hit his tongue and immediately spit it out. He grilled the class and the kids admitted to it and got sent to the principal's office. The principal found out which of them physically poured the chemicals into the coffee, then took him into the bathroom to discipline him, hit him. Apparently he grabbed the bottom of his jaw while screaming in his face. You could hear him echoing through the hallway. Then he squeezed hard enough that the boy started crying. So he slapped him across the face and told him to stop crying. The kid's dad was a lawyer BTW. Suddenly cops were in the building and our new principal was out the door. Story 5. He was a wonderful, friendly, and handsome teacher. This girl had a crush. Somebody told the teacher about this girl's crush. The teacher felt awkward and avoided her eyes from then on. Girl got hurt. Complained to the principal that he was being creepy with her. All the heads, which included my father, were called for a meeting with him. He got sick of defending himself. Shouted, "F you," and left the school. They fired him before he could hand out his resignation. To clarify some things, it was one of the best schools and all the rich kids studied there. I studied because my father was a faculty, otherwise we don't have so much money, and hence teachers were dealt with very harshly. On one occasion, a teacher was fired only because it seemed on the cameras that he hit a boy hard. The parents complained and he was fired the next day, without listening to him at all. My father knew that he just patted him, but the kid was spoiled and he lied. Also, the teacher was a junior one. Nothing happened to the girls. Our IC might have talked to them about it, but about that, they graduated fine. No problem. I got to know about this incident later. When I was there, I just knew that he knows she has a crush on him and that he left one day. I mentioned my father so that you'll know how I know what happened in the meeting. He just knew that a girl has complained and now they are called. Also, the teacher we are talking about was every student's favorite. So other teachers were jealous and they all assumed he is very lenient and encourages us to not follow other teachers and stuff, so it might have made it hard for him to say he stayed professional always. Story 6. My sociology teacher in high school was fired for throwing in chalkboard eraser at a sleeping student's head. He was a great teacher, and always did this in good humor. Obviously not a great idea in retrospect, but we all knew that we could get away with sleeping in his class if we didn't mind getting an eraser upside the head if he noticed. I heard he was fired a few years after I graduated high school, and that kinda bummed me out. Probably deserving of a reprimand of some sort, but not getting fired. It's not like he was a offender or guitar player. Story 7. He was playing his guitar for students at my elementary school. He had been warned before, but the kids enjoyed it so he continued to play it for them anyways. One day, the assistant principal was lurking in the hallway and wandered to his classroom. She saw him playing his guitar and fired him on the spot. A whole lot of students were crying that day because he was an amazing guy. This took place in a small, rural town in Georgia back in the early 2000s. He wasn't the music teacher, he just used to bring his guitar and play songs randomly on some days and the kids enjoyed it. He'd been warned multiple times by his higher-ups. Why? I'd K. He was a great teacher. He thought that before the break, he could play something for us one last time during the last week of school. It just happened to be the worst possible timing, while the assistant principal was walking through the halls. He didn't come back to teach at our school when classes started again. If I recall, he got a job teaching at a different school. Story 8. He straight up didn't show up to work one Monday, didn't call in to arrange a sub or anything. He ghosted the school for a whole week and then tried to come in the following Monday like nothing happened. We also had a 5th grade teacher overdose on meth, but I honestly don't know if she got fired or resigned. It didn't happen at school. Story 9. He got arrested driving through Nevada over the summer with 5 pounds of weed in his car that he'd bought in California. He had no intention on telling the district, and we only found out because a news reporter from the town he was arrested in contacted our superintendent for a quote on the matter. He was let go immediately. Story 10. A coworker teacher got fired 2 weeks in the new semester, when instead of uploading a video related to his subject, he instead accidentally continued a previously paused hardcore lesbian scene on the big interactive screen. The computer he was using was slow and shitty too, so he couldn't quickly exit the video. It went on for a good 30 seconds before someone pulled the plug on the screen around the same time he lobbed the laptop about 30 feet across the class. Story 11. Our principal was escorted out by 2 police. Come to find out, it was because he was caught committing fraud. He would assign students to classes without telling them to make it seem there were more kids in, let's say, the art department, so that the department would receive more funding from the government to continue. He meant well, but students caught on when we moved to college and transcripts from high school had a whole page Fs or withdrawals. It really messed us up. About 2 weeks later he hung himself. Left behind a wife and kids. It really hit me hard because I almost dropped out of high school after 2 of my friends committed suicide. He was the one that got me counseling, helped me graduate, and encouraged me to go to college. I would not be here if it weren't for him. It just really hurt to know that while he was helping me accomplish that, he did the same thing only a month or 2 later. We planted trees for him to remember him by. R.I.P. Mr. Woodcroft, you meant well. Story 12. The one that for fired was a substitute teacher and coach of a girls' team for grades 7 to 9. He seemed a bit creepy, and we joked that he liked coaching the girls and teaching P so he could watch the girls run around in their shorts. Turns out that wasn't far from the truth. His full-time job was in the medical field, where he was caught doing inappropriate things to female patients, some of whom being kids he coached and taught. And he had 2 sons in that school. This one didn't get fired, but she was at the point where she had a few classes taken from her, and if she did anything wrong, she would have been gone. Why? Well, she didn't know the subject she was teaching, and would make stuff up rather than admitting she didn't know the answer. She was always mad, and we called her Popsicle because she acted like she had a stick up her ass. But the biggest thing was that she failed 2 grade 11 classes. The whole class, because apparently not one person, including the smartest people in the school, passed any tests. Story 13. Him and his college buddies invited an underage student over to his house for drinks. They then proceeded to drug and rape her. He still kept his job for a while after the fact because the girl was terrified and didn't know what to do, so she told her friends, which then made the story spread like wildfire, and all the people in a position to do something about it thought it was just a prank. Well, turns out it wasn't a prank. He got sent to prison. Considering it was a drugging and gang rape of a minor, he's probably out by now. I guarantee you he left the state because everyone and their angry redneck dad with a 12-gauge knew about what he did. Story 14. Teachers at my high school got fired on a pretty regular basis. Principal was a narcissist. But here's one of the rare ones we actually heard about. The school went into lockdown because someone was seen hopping over the fence onto campus at the start of the school day. Freshman geography teacher locked his door, didn't control his class, wouldn't let one of the students back in, and jumped at every sound he heard. For comparison, the sub in senior literature next door didn't have a key to lock the door, but grabbed the handle, got on the floor, and planted both his feet on the frame so that the door couldn't be opened. I think the dude was a linebacker for football, too. Story 15. Coach/history teacher, of course. First off, some of the early warning signs we all should have noticed first. He showed up the first day of school and told us he was a youth minister, and that we would always see him in long sleeves and pants because he had tattoos and he regrets them. That he didn't want to accidentally encourage any of us to get some too. 2 weeks later he is in shorts and polo shirts showing off multiple Looney Tunes tattoos. He taught 6th grade U.S. history out of a textbook. Word for word. We did multiple chapters a day and were expected to do every assignment listed for each chapter. This averaged about 3 hours of work a day. In 6th grade. He was the only class that year to regularly assign homework, and he received multiple parent complaints about the workload. He would often leave the class alone to read chapters. He would then go out to the hall or parking lot to make out with his girlfriend, who would arrive randomly. He was the middle school track coach and thus spent a lot of time in and around the middle school locker rooms. Too much time. He took photos of the kids running for the yearbook. These pictures eventually made it onto his work computer desktop. Then his phone background. Only the girls, though. But the final straw that got us out of his care. He showed up to a middle school basketball game drunk and tried to yell at the ref. He was fired that day and not allowed back on campus.